Thank you for attending this press conference. Today, Congress members and community members have gathered to say, enough is enough. The military must stop the hazing that is taking the lives of the patriotic young people that want to serve our country. I am Congressmember Judy Chu, and I have a personal reason for being here. My nephew was a victim of hazing, and it killed him. The Harry Liu that we knew loved to joke and, in fact, was known for his skill in breakdancing. But he had admired the Marines, and at age 19, he decided to enlist. So last year, Lance Corporal Harry Liu was stationed in Afghanistan and was transferred to a new unit 12 days before this fateful day. On April 2nd, Harry was found asleep on duty. At 11:15 p.m., his sergeant verbally berated and cursed at Harry loud enough to wake up the rest of the Marines, announcing to the unit that peers should take care of peers. At 12:01 a.m., the hazing onslaught began. Harry's own peers, 2 lance corporals, took it upon themselves to administer justice and corrective training. They berated him and ordered him to dig a foxhole and to perform push-ups, crunches, and planks while wearing his heavy, full body armor and a 25-pound sandbag. They stomped on his back and legs, they kicked and punched him, and they poured the entire contents of a sandbag onto his face and in his mouth. This lasted a full 3 hours and 20 minutes. Finally, 22 minutes after they stopped, at 3:43 a.m., Harry climbed into a foxhole and killed himself with an automatic weapon. On his arm, he had scrawled, quote, "You may hate me now, but in the long run, this was the right choice. I'm sorry, my mom deserves to know the truth," unquote. He was 21 years old. On Monday, I went to the Marine Corps base in Hawaii to attend the sentencing hearing of Jacob Jacoby, one of the 3 Marines accused in the hazing death of Harry. Jacoby did the greatest physical damage to Harry. He was charged with hazing and 3 counts of assault. But immediately, the case against Jacoby was eviscerated by the Marines through 2 factors. First, in a plea bargain, the Marines agreed to remove the hazing charge. Second, the judge refused to allow suicide to be considered in the case, saying that there was not enough evidence that the suicide was connected to the hazing. This is despite the fact that the suicide occurred only 20 minutes after the hazing. Thus, the very basis of the case that makes it so tragic was removed, and the only basis upon which to levy the sentence were the assaults. The defense attorneys said in their closing arguments that this was an isolated case, that Jacoby was a good man with a great future in the Marines, and that he had suffered enough by having to even go through this trial. Therefore, there should be at most only a 30-day confinement. Within minutes of his statement, the judge delivered her verdict that the punishment would be only a 30-day confinement. It was a slap in the face to the life of Harry Liu. The judge had the ability to impose a sentence of up to a year. She imposed 30 days. She had the ability to reduce the pay by 2/3. She reduced none of it. She had the ability to impose a dishonorable discharge. She merely reduced his rank from lance corporal to private, which means he continues to serve and get promoted. Jacoby took it upon himself, with no authority in rank, to assault Harry for 3.5 hours, resulting in a trauma so deep he committed suicide 20 minutes later. Jacoby gets to advance his career in the military, and Harry is dead. But Harry's story is only the tip of the iceberg. Just last year, Private Hampson Daniels McPherson, stationed in Okinawa, reportedly set himself on fire. This occurred after near constant racist hazing and abuse at the hands of his fellow Marines, according to the family. McPherson called home regularly and complained to his dad, sister, and friends about the racist treatment he and other black Marines endured. Just last year, 7 Coast Guardmen were convicted for tying down fellow crew members, forcing them to strip, coating them in foreign substances and calling them derogatory names. In some instances, there was even inappropriate sexual contact. And just last year, in fact, only 4 months ago, Private Danny Chen was found dead, apparently of a self-inflicted wound. Chen was subjected to mistreatment by his fellow soldiers and his direct superiors almost on a daily basis for weeks. He was forced to do excessive sit-ups, push-ups, runs, and sprints carrying sandbags, amongst other things, and that rocks were thrown at him to simulate artillery. When the soldiers were putting up a tent, Chen was forced to wear a construction hat and give instructions in Chinese, even though none of the other soldiers spoke the language. He was also called racial slurs and was forced to work additional details. And now the Army is considering dropping the most serious charge against one of the soldiers who caused the most harm to Danny. And that was just in 2011 alone. These numerous and violent hazing incidents and the lack of justice in Harry's case show that hazing is not taken seriously by the military. Though they supposedly have policies and training in place to prohibit it, it is not being enforced and it is not effective. In fact, under the term of corrective action, it is tolerated and even encouraged within the ranks. I am calling this press conference to say that this must stop. Too many patriotic young people who only want to serve our country are being harmed. The highest military officials must make eliminating hazing a top priority. They must stop sweeping it under the rug. They must stop pretending there is no problem. After the death of my nephew, I received so many letters from people around the country who recounted the stories of hazing their families received in the service. But what was even more disturbing is the fact that they felt helpless in fighting it. None of this will change until the Secretary of Defense commits to eradicate the culture of hazing that is so ingrained within our troops. Soldiers in positions of responsibility in the field must be made to feel that they should stop hazing when they see it, rather than encouraging it or turning the other way. The perpetrators of hazing must also actually be punished. Currently, there is little deterrence. Certainly, if Jacob Jacoby can get off with a month of confinement, there is not much consequence to hazing, even if the result is death. Nothing will change unless the people at the very top say that this is a problem and take actions to change the culture and consequences of hazing. I am calling for a congressional hearing on hazing. I am calling for a change in military hazing policy. I am calling for reform, and I am calling for actual enforcement instead of looking the other way. I now have the sister of Harry Liu. This is Carmen Liu right here. She is on the phone to present a statement on behalf of the family of Harry Liu.
And everyone should have a copy of the statement with them. Okay, Carmen. Ready when you are.
Okay. Harry Liu left us 9 months ago. It has been a long journey for our family since we laid Harry to rest. The hearings of the Marines accused have been hard on us as we learn the shocking details of Harry's death. We want more than anything for justice to be done. We were disappointed that the judgment did not include hazing. Harry took 3.5 hours of assaults from soldiers who took matters into their own hands. Harry committed suicide only 20 minutes later. It is unbelievable that the Marines would not consider this hazing. We are also extremely disappointed that Harry's suicide was not even allowed to be brought up in this hearing. That ruling was over the objections of the prosecution. Because of that, justice was not done. The sentence was not appropriate. This has shaken our faith in the Marine Corps legal system. We strongly hope that there will be justice in the court-martials of the others accused. Harry's death left a hole in our hearts. We want to make sure no other military family, will have to suffer like we did.
Thank you, Carmen.
Thank you.
And now we will have words from other Congress members. And Harry lived in Congressmember Mike Honda's district. And so first okay. Oh,
Let's go ahead. That's good. No.
well, we are very, very honored to have the ranking member of the ranking chair of Armed Services to be here. And that is Congressmember Adam Smith. Congressmember Smith, please, if you can say a few words.
Thank you. Well, I want to thank Congresswoman Chu for her leadership on this issue and bringing it to the attention of the committee and to the attention of the military and the Marine Corps. This is a serious problem. Offer strong condolences to the family of Harry Chu for their loss. And this is something that is within the military and needs to be examined. I think a hearing is very appropriate. I think a discussion about how we can prevent this and change the culture so that we deal with these problems in a way that protect life and don't jeopardize it. This is a tragic, tragic case. It is clear that the hazing that Harry underwent directly led to his death. This is not the only case when something like this has happened within the military, and I think Representative Chu is absolutely right. There is a cultural problem within the military that needs to be examined. Now, I, as every member of Congress up here and in this body, respects the very difficult job that those who serve in the military have to do, how much they have to rely on each other, how much their lives are at risk every second of every day. But this is clearly a problem that can be addressed in the training that will actually better protect the lives of all involved, to deal with disciplinary matters in a way that are effective for the entire unit and protect life. I don't know exactly what the answers are to this yet. I don't know what needs to be changed within the training process and the way they do that. But I do know that those questions need to be examined. I think a hearing is perfectly appropriate. I've already had meetings with the Marine Corps, and we'll have more to talk about what they can change, about the way they do their training, the way they handle discipline, so that hopefully tragedies like this can be avoided in the future. And I really want to thank Harry's family for their courage in bringing this out. And this is a huge and very, very personal loss for them. But their willingness to engage in this process can hopefully prevent that tragedy for future families. And I thank them for that and pledge to continue working with them to find solutions and improve this process. And again, I thank Congresswoman Chu for her leadership on this issue. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Congressmember Smith. And next, we will have the person in whose district Harry lived, and that's Congressmember Mike Honda.
Thank you, Judy. I want to thank my courageous friend and colleague, Congresswoman Chu, for calling this press conference on military hazing. I'm here today because everything I know about the facts of Lance Corporal Harry Liu's case tells me that the hand slap sentencing of Lance Corporal Jacoby is wrong. Clearly, the system of the Department of Defense to deal with hazing does not work. The tragic death of Harry Liu is an urgent call to action. The crucial issue of hazing in the military must be addressed immediately. The brave men and women of our armed services must be served within and be able to serve in a system that guarantees their protection and their families' trust in their superiors. Lance Corporal Harry Liu's parents are my constituents, and our community has shared in their terrible loss. Many difficult questions still remain on this tragic incident. Private Danny Chen's case and many similar hazing cases in the military also exist. There is no doubt that the Liu and Chen families feel betrayed by our military, and I am sure this is the same for many other families and communities. We must restore that trust for their sake and for all of our military families. I know from meeting with Harry Liu's parents how much it meant to Harry to serve his nation in uniform. We must act now to ensure that the Department of Defense has effective diversity training and stricter enforcement policies to guarantee that our service members, no matter their background, are able to safely and honorably defend the citizens and the Constitution of the United States. We call on the House Committees on Armed Services and Oversight Government Reform to take these warnings seriously and hold hearings in order to protect our brave service members from any future danger. And we also call upon the committee to pursue the process of the Inspector General of the DOD and the General Accountability Office to pursue this matter so that we're able to get as much information and facts together so that the institutionalized acceptance of hazing is eliminated. Thank you.
And now we'd like to hear from an outstanding Congress member who's always spoken out on behalf of justice, and that is Congressmember Barbara Lee.
Thank you very much. First, Congresswoman Chu, let me thank you for bringing us all together to discuss this very important issue. As an executive board member of the Congressional Asian Pacific American Caucus, I'm really honored to be here with you, and I applaud your continued leadership. But also, let me just say that my thoughts and prayers, first of all, Congresswoman Chu, are with you and your family in the wake of this tragic loss of your nephew, Lance Corporal Harry Liu. Unfortunately, as we've heard and as you all know, this was not an isolated incident, which was sadly proven with the similar hazing and death of Private Danny Chen in Afghanistan. And my heart goes out to his family and to all of the victims of hazing, as well as all of their loved ones and friends. Sadly, the problem of military hazing is widespread throughout the armed services. The racism and racial slurs and all of the issues that we really don't want to sweep out from under the rug, which fuel the hazing of Harry Liu and Danny Chen, really does not reflect the values of our armed services members, nor does it reflect American values. We must aim to prepare our armed services to face the 21st century challenges. That means changing the culture to openly accept brave Americans from all walks of life, no matter their race or creed, no matter the family they return to while on leave, no matter their religious beliefs or their sexual orientation. As the daughter of an African-American serviceman, a colonel who fought in Korea, and yes, in the Second World War in Italy, along with the Tuskegee Airmen, I understand the military very well and its history and know how far we've come. But I also know that we have a lot left to do. And hazing is one of those issues that we must not tolerate, like we finally concluded we could not tolerate segregation in the military. And so I support Congresswoman Chu's calls for the House Armed Services Committee and the Oversight and Government Reform Committee to hold hearings on this very important matter. We must understand the extent and the depth of this problem in order to address it and to prevent it in the future. The families of the service members deserve a comprehensive, transparent, and full investigation into the circumstances in these particular units and across the armed service branches, as do the American people, and justice must be served. And so I thank Congresswoman Chu and all of the members here today for bringing us together to really shine light on this critical issue. We need to hold hearings, encourage transparency on military hazing so that our brave men and women in uniform can safely and can honorably defend our country regardless of their background. Thank you again.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Congressmember Lee. And Tom Hayashi is okay. We also have another speaker, but he's outside. Tom Hayashi from the Organization of Chinese Americans who are taking up the Danny Chen case. Instead, we will go right now into questions and answers. So any questions from the press?
Have you heard from your two California colleagues, Mr. McKeon or Mr. Issa, who head those committees that you've asked for hearings from?
We haven't heard back yet. We did issue a letter asking for the hearings, and it was signed by quite a few Congress members. So we are hopeful.
When did you send the letter?
Yeah, it was last week. Yeah, we have that document available for you. Yes.
How soon do you think you'll be having the hearings, and who in the military will be appearing?
Well, first we have to try to, of course, get the hearing, and then we would work on the program and the ones that we want to have testify. But I think we want to really shed a light on what is going on with hazing and whether the policies are even adequate in addressing it, even in a small fraction of a way. I mean, I was very startled to find that statistics aren't even kept on how much hazing is done. None of the branches of the military actually know how much hazing is done. At least the Marines have a policy and training. In the Army, they only have a policy but no training. So we are far away from having an action plan that actually addresses hazing.
Did you talk to Mr. Panetta, and what response did you get from the Defense Department?
We have placed a call to Secretary of Defense Panetta, and haven't actually been able to talk to him. Yes.
Now, in the wake of the recent incidents, there were public statements issued by the Secretary of Defense and the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff that essentially informed troops that hazing would not be tolerated under any circumstances, and ordering commanders to ensure that it did not take place. Given that they laid out essentially what they felt was the policy in fairly clear terms, given that, where do you think the problem lies? Do you think that there's a disconnect between what they expect and what's happening on the ground?
They will issue those types of statements. In the Marines, there is even training in which they say that hazing is not tolerated. But actually, on the ground level, with the troops, these policies are not effective. Basically, hazing occurs because of this idea that there must be corrective training for soldiers that they consider to be deficient. That's the excuse to do these excessive kinds of actions, these assaults, in which they force soldiers to do these push-ups and throw things at them and whatever kind of thing they can dream up. And there's nobody actually stopping it. That's the problem. There's really nobody that will actually take the step to say, stop this. In the case of Danny Chen, this went on for weeks, and nobody stopped it. Yes. Kitty?
Is there a definition of hazing that the military, at least the Marines, accept?
It is laid out in the policy, and I don't have that right on me. I don't know.
No. It is laid out in the policy and in the regulations, but I don't know what it is off the top of my head. But they have a definition. I think Judy's right. The problem is the follow-through. The problem is making sure that the command structure keeps charge of discipline. So it's not, and this is not just a problem. If I may, it's not just a problem, for the individual soldier or Marine or sailor or airman who's suffering from it. It's a breakdown in the chain of command in terms of who's supposed to be in charge of discipline. Discipline is not supposed to be just spread out, and sort of done ad hoc on the fly. Every unit wants to have a strict structure on how to do that, and that's what we need to reemphasize. So we need to look at that definition, and most importantly, look at, are they following through, and is it actually what's happening on the ground? That's the biggest challenge.
Congressmember Lee, here, you want to, look.
You can read it.
Okay. Well, Congressmember Lee came up with the definition, which is the order defines hazing as any conduct whereby one military member causes another military member to suffer or be exposed to an activity that is cruel, abusive, humiliating, or oppressive. The order further explains some examples, in particular physically striking another to inflict pain and piercing another's skin in any manner.
Crystal.
That's Marines. This is Marines.
Do the other branches have definitions or no definition at all?
They do. They're all fairly similar. Okay. I think the Marines one was from 1997, so it hasn't been updated in over a decade.
Yes.
Since this hearing will be in aid of legislation, is there something like a bill that is being contemplated to, like I heard the definition of hazing, and it does not really cover what's going on now. Will there be
Well, I would hope that we could have legislation that would address it. Yes.
That's the reason for hearings and stuff.
Yes. The hearing lays the groundwork for it. Yes.
Can you talk about maybe some other movements to correct military behavior that you've learned from, whether it's how, the 15 years it took for gay soldiers to be allowed to serve openly, or it's the recent, the 10 years it took suicide prevention to be recognized as a health problem that was addressed through everything from the chaplains to actual counseling in the U.S. military. Have they laid any kind of path for you to address this and kind of have either advice or legislatively an easier push? Is there anything you've learned?
Well, when the case first happened with Harry, we actually asked a series of questions, and it was in a letter co-signed by Congressmember Smith and Congressmember Honda and myself. And we asked numerous questions about how the Marines were addressing hazing. And they outlined exactly how their training was taking place and that it was in all the different units and so forth. But I found some revealing things through this report. I found that in Harry's unit in which this death occurred, that there were actually 6 instances of hazing within the previous year. And nothing had been done about it.
If I may, this country is full of changes and examples that you asked. In the case of military, before World War II, we had segregated platoons and segregated companies, African Americans and Asians, and right after Pearl Harbor, we had the 442 was a segregated combat regiment, and it wasn't until after the war President Truman says, this is not tolerable anymore. Civil rights movement brought to the surface all kinds of things that shouldn't exist under the Constitution. So there are a lot of, I guess there's a maturity in our country that's saying when we know stuff that's going on, we have to say it cannot continue anymore. And in institutions where it's deeply buried at times and carefully guarded, it needs to hit the sunshine. And I think that what's being asked by Congresswoman Chu, a hearing, is going to be one of those salutary moves that this country needs to have on behalf of all of its military personnel in this country.
I follow up on my own question in the sense that suicide prevention has been a big push over the last 10 years, and I wonder if there's something in that construct that is even close to addressing this. I gather you don't think so, but can you talk about whether that's a good place to start to work it into that existing policy, perhaps?
Well, of course, suicide prevention would be a great thing to integrate into this. I think that all measures that can allow a service member to be able to express their distress, of course, would be very much welcome in this reform. So absolutely, I do embrace it. I also think that there has to be a change in the culture in which service members could feel comfortable to even reveal such things, and I don't think that exists right now. Any other questions? If not, then thank you all very much.
Mr. Ashley with OCA is outside to take anyone's questions. OCA has been helping represent the Chen family in New York and is actively involved with that case there. So from that perspective, he's just outside the door. So.
Can we invite him in?
After the conference concludes.
Yeah, after the conference. Okay.
Okay, well, thank you very much.
Thanks.